Okay, we're moving right along now. We are in topic 5 of our course, Everybody Knows, and I'm going to just briefly review with you that thesis statement. Years ago, the only thing we wanted was for a kid to obey. Now it's the last thing we get, and you've heard this already. I believe the educational gurus who've spent their time looking at things from a theoretical standpoint never really spent time with a group of wild kids in a classroom. And they're more, the word obedience just doesn't fit their own theory or how they present things. In other words, it's kind of like an antiquated word. And they think we're going to destroy the creative side of a kid's brain by not allowing him to choose. Well, just as a matter of information, the creative side of a kid's brain is on the right side. The relationship side, the logical side, is on the left side. Okay, so there's two different parts of the brain. So let's forget about obedience for now, and we'll call it compliance. And that definition is doing what you're told when you're told to do it with a good attitude. And my premise here is we all have to obey at certain times. We have a family, we have employment, we have society. They all have rules. You know, there was a question one time that was asked of me, and it was, do you think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame? For those of you who don't know him, he was kicked out of baseball in 1980 for betting on his own team, the Cincinnati Reds. And that is a no-no in baseball. It's a no-no in all sports. My comment was, yes, I think he should be in the Hall of Fame, but if you want to put him there, change the rules. Change the rules. And that rule is put there for a reason. It's in the clubhouse of every single baseball team in this country and probably in other countries. So he failed to obey the rules. And by doing so, he was thrown out of baseball in 1980 by the then commissioner Bart Giamatti, who, by the way, fought this thing to his death. And I mean that because 2 days after him and Rose came to an agreement, Bart Giamatti died of a heart attack at his home in Martha's Vineyard. To give you an idea how hard this guy fought, this was a Yale professor who was the commissioner of baseball at the time. Very young man, and he died at a young age, but I believe that battle wore him out. Now, first thing we have to do is to get folks, our students, and everybody in general, to be able to cooperate even though they disagree. And that's not hard, because we're not asking for agreement when parents come in and when we speak to kids. What we're asking for is cooperation. See, half of the time in a system, you're not going to agree with all of the things that go on, but you still got to do them. You may not agree with your schedule as a teacher that you get in September, but you still have to follow it. Kids don't have to agree with who their teacher is. They don't have to agree with when they have gym. They don't have to agree with anything, but they have to cooperate. And most of the time when you talk to employers, they'll tell you that it's not whether or not an employee can do the job. It's more whether he's cooperative, he has a good attitude, and he wants to learn how to do the job. So cooperation on a job is something that we all have to. Now, we don't have to do it. We can get fired. But we all should be doing. And kids should learn this at an early age. Have you ever asked yourself sometimes, why is the unemployment rate so high? You might be surprised that people lose jobs because of poor attitude and lack of cooperation. Now, the next thing we have to do is to allow people to disagree, but they got to do it with the right attitude. And I've shared this thousands of times. See, it doesn't matter if you disagree. If you're still going to cooperate, we'll live with that. But we'd like you, we'd like folks, we would like our students moving forward to learn that attitude is important. And I love this line, a bad attitude is like a flat tire. If you don't change it, you'll never go anywhere. How true. Cooperation with the right attitude, or disagreement with the right attitude. Critical. And you know, when you think about it in a classroom, it gives kids a voice. It allows them, you got a lot of angry kids today, and this idea of giving them a voice so they can disagree helps them understand that they can say things, but they have to have the right attitude when they do it. You know, I really wish we didn't have to be doing math. Well, that's not like saying, I'm not doing math, I hate this subject, it's so hard, He's merely expressing himself, and he's having the ability to disagree with the right attitude, even though, moving forward, he will be cooperative. Now, there's 3 steps to getting compliance out of a student. You have to provide instruction first. Tell them what you want. And with that instruction, you have to provide a warning. In other words, John, I need you to sit down, and if you don't, you let them know that there's going to be a consequence. Now, my idea has always been consequences don't have to be immediate. I know that's what we're taught in college, but it doesn't have to be immediate. You wait for the next need to pop up. Can I get a drink of water? Can I change my seat? Whatever the need is in the classroom, you wait for that need to be revealed, and then you say, as soon as you get these few pages done in math. Or you could say, no, you can't, because you were non-compliant earlier. And there is nothing wrong. See, kids are given too much today. There's an entitlement mentality, and we all know it. And sometimes we give kids things, and we get nothing in return. And that's what we have to stop doing. I've done it. I'm sure some of you have done it. It's just something that, we want kids to have it. They ask us for it. We give it to them. And then we don't withhold. We're always in a pattern of withholding. All right, now you did such and such, you can't have the car keys. You did such and such, there goes the play date. You did such and such, we're not going to McDonald's. And it becomes so laborious. But if you start to ask kids for things before you do something for them, you're going to see things are going to change. From a household standpoint, Mommy, can I watch Sprouts before I go to bed? Well, get your teeth brushed, and you can watch Sprouts for a little while. You got the teeth brushed, the kid's happy, he did what he had to do. Let's get your pajamas on first, and get your teeth brushed, then you can sit and watch Sprouts for a while. Now the kid feels rewarded for doing the right thing rather than punished for doing the wrong thing. Fear is the greatest motivator, and I don't mean fear. Look at that picture of Arnold. Isn't that something? And he was one person that never wanted mediocrity. He always wanted to be the best, and he was at what he did at that point in his life as a bodybuilder. But fear is the greatest motivator. the greatest motivator. They have to have a fear of the loss. Not being able to watch Sprouts might be a very big loss for a 4-year-old. So that's why they brush their teeth. But when you take that and start to spread that out over years and years, what you're doing is you're training them to understand that they have to give something in order to get something. And the loss of something, or not being given something for what they did, is a tremendous fear in many kids. And kids who are disciplined with just yelling and people losing their temper and setting boundaries in anger, those kids, as they grow older, they can put up with the screaming. And they're still going to do what they want to do. Until there is some form of consequence in place, or until a kid knows that he's going to get when he gives, okay, they're not going to have any fear. But they will have a very healthy fear of a loss of something that they want, if in fact that's the way that we start to deal with them. You just scream and holler and impose no consequence, you're going nowhere. Now, the next thing we have to do is learn how to praise wisely. Now, I've written articles about this. One of them was white noise. And white noise went like this. I always kept telling my daughter that she, looked good, she's smart, and so on and so forth. And she looked at me one day and she said, "Dad, you're my father. What are you supposed to say?" And I finally caught on that it was kind of like going in one ear and out the other. And because of that, I started to think, how much praise is too much? She's the one that called my attention to when she was about 14. But the idea here is we praise for some very specific things that we want a kid to continue. And you don't have to use a lot of it or it will become white noise. And then, in between, by the way, it doesn't matter how much you praise a kid. If that kid doesn't respect you, the praise doesn't mean anything. So, in between these praises, and by the way, you should also let them know how their behavior motivates you to do some of this. "John, your desk is so neat and tidy. You've motivated me to clean mine." Watch how kids will start to clean when you make that one statement, or try to keep things neater when you make that one statement. And in between the praise, what you do is you fill in with something, and I covered it in one of the other presentations, which was the 2x10. 2 minutes a day for 10 days straight, have a conversation with a kid like you would with your best friend. Just 2 minutes. Touch base. How you doing? How'd the Knicks do last night? What are you up to? You got anything going on? How your girlfriend's doing? You hanging out with your friends? Whatever. You have a conversation with them like you would with your best friend. And that will help change the way this kid looks at you and looks at life. And once you can get on the inside track of that kid's brain, what will happen is you'll be able to speak into his life when it comes down to him being cooperative and compliant. Now, here is a picture of Dr. Robin Odegaard, who I had met. And she wrote a book called Stop the Drama Now. And she coined this term, and it meant a lot to me. Productive conflict. Productive conflict is nothing more than leaving enough space in a conversation or an argument for people to disagree. Now, what does this have to do with compliance? Well, I'm going to tell you what it has to do with compliance. If you don't know how to do that, and you're constantly battling with kids, and you constantly have power struggles and battles, and and there's wreckage all over the place emotionally, how willing will that student be to be compliant in your classroom? They're not going to listen to you because of all the stuff that's gone on. You end up the odd man out. They're not listening to you because of the fact that they don't respect you. So what you have to do is learn that if you're going to have a conflict, it has to be a productive conflict. Something where we can resolve the issue and not ruin the relationship in the process. Sit down, stand up, get online, where's your pencil, take out your math book. No fighting, watch your language. All of these things are things that have to be taught to kids, and they have to be taught to them with a sense of gain and loss in their mind. In other words, what am I going to lose if I don't do it? And then when they do it, and when we start asking them questions like, if a kid says, can I get a drink of water, finish these problems, or you can go out, at least then the kid knows he did something, he worked for something, he got the drink of water, he got to leave the room. He may have got to be the classroom messenger, where he got to bring things down to the office. And I'm talking about very little kids here. Because if you don't start with the little kids, by the time these kids hit 10, 12 years old, you know what's going to happen? All the yelling and everything else that you do, and imposition of consequences and anger, and boundaries and anger and all that is just going to ruin the relationship that you have with some of your students, and they will never be compliant. That's Doc Odegaard. Use praise wisely. Understand that fear is the fear of a loss, because life is based on gain and loss. Follow these 3 steps: instruction, warning, correction. You'll find that it's going to work. By the way, the biggest thing you need to do there is 1 warning, because they'll know when you use 3 or 4 warnings, and they'll wait till about the 4th warning before they do what you've asked them to do. Understand that we have to disagree, but with the right attitude, and we have to learn cooperation even though we might disagree. That is hour 5 of Everybody Knows. And here the problem is, we're dealing with how to get kids to be more compliant and obedient. So let's work on this. Let's work on this, because this is all we want. If we can get to obedience, we can get to respect, we can get to responsibility. Once they start listening to us, things become a whole lot easier, and things also become much more cooperative. There's a kinder attitude, there's a safer attitude in your classroom. Kids don't live in fear of another power struggle, and they certainly don't live in fear of others. So, problem 5, there you have it. Yeah, the document is in the course. You can look at it in terms of the solutions. And, of course, there's a presentation that deals with the introduction of this topic as well. Okay, that's problem 5. Go to work. Talk to you soon, everybody.